over the security of the process and the potential efficacy of the outcome.
The challenge with election security is that there isn't just one threat. Recent headlines have highlighted potential challenges with mail-in voting, voter registration logistics, and vulnerabilities with internet-connected machines, just to name a few. All right, in today's episode, we're making sense of the threats facing the election, and experts will help explain what issues deserve your attention. Welcome to the download. We're talking election security.
Chances are, if you search election security right now, you'll be bombarded with headlines. Amid a sea of information, hot takes, news reports, it's hard to make sense of what exactly is the greatest threat to November's election. So, let's review a few of them. 1. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence recently shared concern that an adversary could interfere in the election. 2. Voters increasingly are losing trust in the process. 3. Questions are growing over whether enough money has been spent to modernize the infrastructure. And 4, could a common cyber threat like ransomware wreak havoc on November's election? So, before we turn it over to the experts, we want to hear from you. What do you think is the greatest threat to November's election? Leave us a comment with your thoughts or opinions.
Since 2016, there's been increased attention on the security of the ballot box. But is that the only threat to the election process? As one expert will share next, there are challenges dotted around the entire electoral system. Let's hear from Ari Schwartz, an American cybersecurity policy expert and the former senior director for cybersecurity on the U.S. National Security Council staff at the White House.
Securing elections is tough because, you obviously want to secure the voting machines, but it's not just the voting machines, right? I mean, it's the voter rolls, it's the information around voting that goes out there, and so people know whether they're getting real information or not. I mean, aside from the social media misinformation, even just, there's a whole long history of people sending people to the wrong polling places, sending them misinformation about who's running in what place and who they should be voting for and why they should be voting for them. So I think just, there's all of that that they normally have to worry about but then adding the electronic means to it has made it much more difficult to secure elections than they had in the past. I think people have strategies for doing that now, so there's practices out there, which 8 years ago there was a lot less of that. So I think we've made some progress in that regard. They just need more money to get it done.
It's nearly impossible to go through your day without hearing something about election security, whether that's on TV, on your phone, on social media. But 20 plus years ago, election security wasn't as much of a concern. So what's happened? Let's turn it over to Red Curry for his perspective and hypothesis on why election security is now a prime target.
And the bottom line really is that elections are how most powerful entities in the world influence power structure and self-organize. That makes them the proving grounds, the shortcut, the time to push for an agenda. We've had fraud for a very, very long time, especially around elections. And cyber isn't just a poor man's nuke. It's more and more a tool of choice for war, terrorism, crime, foreign policy, and unfair advantages in trade and even diplomacy.
As we talk about attack vectors and points of vulnerability, it's important to reflect on the effect that all of these things have on the collective psyche. With the varying concerns that we've discussed today, paired with the reality that misinformation could be guiding and steering public perception, have we reached a point where doubt could be a nemesis to the future of the U.S. election process? Let's hear again from Ari Schwartz, who offers his point of view on the topic.
Really, I think the most worrying piece is that especially for a nation state to accomplish what they want to accomplish and having an election fail, right? Or the results to come out differently from an election. They don't need to mess everything up. They just need to sow doubt in people's minds. They don't need to mess anything up, honestly. They just have to sow doubt in people's minds, right? So sowing doubt is a victory for them. Doing things very, very loudly in ways that catch attention So, they could try and hack the ballot box. They could try and hack the voter rolls. They could try, and they don't have to succeed in doing it, but knowing that they've made some attempt and raises doubt about every other state, every other polling place, every other location, and whether they really got in somewhere and made a difference somewhere that really mattered, right? Especially when you have these, such close election numbers in the last few elections, right? That it really makes a huge difference. I mean, and I'm not just talking about presidential elections. We've had some Senate races that have been really, really close too.
We've spent a lot of time talking today about the various threats that could undermine the process or the efficacy of November's election, but we haven't talked about the solution. Now let's turn it back over to Red Curry for a perspective on what tools could be used to better secure the electoral process in the future.
Solutions start with trust. Always. Multi-factor authentication and identity governance and lifecycle management are a really great start. Elections are extremely complex. Typical elections have many races happening even simultaneously. Different precincts have several different ballots, in-person and mail-in options, with a massive temporary workforce. It's important to prioritize access decisions and ensure that users have timely access to the applications that they need to be successful. You also need to ensure that users have appropriate access and that they can confirm they are who they say that they are. MFA and IGNL controls to address the security challenges associated with delivering convenient access to dynamic user populations across these complex environments is critical for organizations that need identity and access assurances. Look, I'm not going to stop there. Look to SIM, look to NDR, and even EDR solutions. Improving the overall visibility, monitoring endpoints, and the network while being able to detect threats and identify these unusual behaviors, signaling an insider threat, and even an external attacker leveraging compromised credentials, that would be huge. This is the time to accelerate threat detection and response across more capture points and even more computing platforms, physical, virtual, and cloud, and enriching this data with threat intelligence and context to advance the visibility for the security analysts who struggle trying to triage alerts and incidents within extremely short time frames. It's a critical thing. I always say, you can't defend against something you don't know about. It's part of the preparedness. That's where fraud, risk, and intelligence services really come into play. Visibility into the dark web, cybercrime, the underground, with continuous monitoring of social media platforms to provide proactive intelligence, detailing these threats to organizations, that's important. Threat management services offering attack takedown, cyber intelligence are important as well. That needs to be complete coverage against things like phishing, Trojan attacks, rogue mobile apps, and yes, even these rogue social media pages that we see today.
Today, we dug into an international headline issue, election security. As we heard from our experts, the threats to the US election this November and beyond are numerous and only growing. What are your thoughts on all of this? What do you think is the greatest threat to the upcoming election? And is there a way to address it? Leave us a comment with your opinion.
Okay, that's it for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope to see you at the ballot box.